On the air, first and third Sunday, 7 p.m., W5FC.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
KC50ZT, does anybody need to use a repeater before I begin Skynet? This is KC50ZT. My name is Carolyn, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. With priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time. by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Do we have any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC Dash R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics: astronomy charts, pictures, live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list, and please remember to tell others about this popular net. And all amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. And the net is 90 minutes long and structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, or where and when you can look through a telescope. Discussion topic of the evening: what can you see in the sky tonight? A featured constellation or object or topic. Recent astronomical discoveries. Space exploration and space history. Visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Astronomical questions and answers, and the 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in, but let's start first with low power and short time check-ins. Please come with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. Do we have any low power or short time check-ins?
Kilo Golf 5, Vector, Julio, Papa, Robert, and Richardson.
KG5, I believe it's VJP. Well, good evening and welcome to the net. And did I get that call sign right?
Yes, that's correct. I wasn't exactly low power, but I am a short time checking. I'm thinking about joining the club tonight. I'm just looking at it, and it's a really interesting club. Enjoy listening to you guys.
Okay, well, I'm glad you do. And let's see, do we have any other low power or short time check-ins? Right, then we'll move on to general check-ins, and please come now.
This is November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill in Irving.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Golf November, Chris in Plano.
Kelly in Quinlan.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
Well, let me get these first, and that recognizes N5BB, Bill and Irving. K5JGN, Chris and Plano. K5KTX, Kelly and Quinlan. K5ZBL, Bill and Farmers Branch. K5ICX, Tom and Louisville. WB50ZL, Brenda and DeSoto, and KG5EIU, David and St. Paul. Do we have any other general check-ins?
Is
Would you like to try again there? And you're not making your repeater. Maybe you can try again later. Do we have any other general check-ins?
Kilo 5, Alpha, November, Papa, Allen and Dallas.
Delta 5, India, Zulu, Foxtrot, Dave and Mesquite. Bravo 5. Hold on. This is your call sign. This is Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo Bravo, David from Dallas.
Alright, and that recognizes I think it's W5ALP, Allen, Dallas, KD5IZF, Dave and Mesquite. And W5 Echo Bravo Bravo, I think didn't quite get your name, but you're in Dallas. Would you guys come back and give me your name?
That's David in Dallas, W5.
Okay, David, and welcome to the net. Alright, do we have anybody who wants to check in by Echolink?
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5 Tango Hotel Bravo, Brent and Henrietta. Back to net.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J, near Weatherford.
Alright, the net recognizes KF5 THB, Brent, KF5PDS, Billy, KG5BZW, Jay, and K5JDW, John in Oklahoma by text, and anybody else by Echolink. And KG5QXI, Glenn at the DAS DARC site in Caney, Oklahoma. Welcome to the net, and I hope you have clear skies there tonight. We will be having future round of check-ins, but let's move on to anybody that would like to check in by any means.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas. Number Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Right then, we picked up WB4MFI, Ted, and KG5APL, Pat, and NT5TM, Tony. Welcome to the net, and we'll be having some future round of check-ins, but let's move on first to general announcements. Does anyone have any announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or general interest licensed hams.
Number Tango 5, Tango Mike.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
KE5ICX.
Okay. NT5TM, would you like to go first?
Sure, may I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like to remind everyone that the DARC Night of Nets is not over. We have the Afterglow Movie Net coming up at 10:30 p.m. tonight. I bet Tom will give some more details of that, but it is an odd movie made in both 1939 and 1953, so there's certainly some discussion we can have about it. In addition, don't forget that tomorrow is the first Sunday of the month, so we have the DARC meeting on the air at 7 p.m. right here on this repeater. This meeting is open to everyone. You don't have to be a club member. You just have to be willing to share what's been going on in your ham world. Amateur Radio Club monthly meeting will be taking place this coming Tuesday. We'll be having a program on digital radio hotspots presented by our club president and vice president, Bill and David. This should be pretty interesting because these are not replacements for radios. They're ways to get your digital ham radio signal, be it D-Star or DMR or Fusion, into the internet from your laptop or other computer or cell phone even sometimes, so that it can come out anywhere in the world. That's going to be this Tuesday. Board meeting is at 6, general meeting is at 7. Both take place at the Dallas Medical Center on the northeast corner of Webb Chapel and LBJ in the 3rd floor community room of the main hospital building. There are lots more details at W5FC.org. In fact, I'd like to urge Dallas Radio Club members to please pay your dues. We need them. We have details on how to do that at W5FC.org, as well as details about all my earlier announcements from the previous net. This is NT5TM. I hope everybody's having a great evening.
Thank you, Tony. KC50ZT. N5BB, go ahead.
Carolyn, this is N5BB. The Arecibo Radio Observatory in Puerto Rico has been saved, it appears. So that the radio telescope there, which is built in a kind of a valley, and is a big wire curved mesh with a feed horn that can be dragged across the top on a cable, was falling into disrepair over the last decade because of not enough money to keep it going. It's pretty old by today's standards. And then it was severely damaged in the hurricanes a few months ago. So it was worried, a lot of people were worrying that they would just close it permanently. It was already kind of on the way to being closed even before the hurricane. But a group of, a consortium of universities pooled their funding, and the University of Central Florida, UCF, in the Orlando, Florida area, is going to now be controlling the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico. So it appears it's going to be rehabilitated and kept going, moving into the future, which I think is good news. There are certain things that only it can do because it's so large. There have been a few amateur radio activities there over the last couple of decades also. In 5BB, thanks.
Thank you for that, and yes, that is good news. All right, KE5ICX, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Ms. Carolyn. This is KE5ICX. Thought I'd mention here we're a week away for a field trip over to the Space Center Houston. We're going to go to Houston, a number of us, to see the Apollo 11 Command Module. We're coming up on the 50th anniversary of that mission. Actually, it's about about a year and a half away or so. We're up to, I think it's 7 people now we're interested in going. We have 2 cars currently to head down there. To give you some of the particulars to see if you're interested, we're going to be meeting at the Dallas Medical Center on March 10th at 7 a.m. sharp. We'll be getting out of here. We're going to be leaving at 7 a.m. sharp, so show up between 6 and 7. We'll be carpooling from Houston. It takes about 3-4 hours of touring the complex. We'll be parking at the Dallas Medical Center first. You can leave there. There's monitored parking. It's free. That's where we meet for the meetings, by the way. Then we'll pull up and head over to the Space Center Houston. That's the commercial portion of the Johnson Space Center. That's where all of the exhibits are available. Now, the admission is $29.95. I know that seems kind of steep, but if you've got time, you can go on one of the tours as well. That could be of the historic Space Center that will take you to where the moon launches, or the moon activities, the lunar landing activities took place over at the Craft Mission Control Center, or you can go to the currently working International Space Station Mission Control Center. That's up 24/7, and you'll see people actually monitoring the International Space Station. other items that you can see while you're there is the Apollo 17 command module, the last lunar mission. That is on permanent display there, as well as, get this, are you ready for this, the Galileo 7. What is that? No, it's not a Mercury spacecraft. That is, although they have one on display, the Galileo 7 is the shuttlecraft, the full-scale shuttlecraft prop that was used in Star Trek. That's been refurbished and was given to the museum about 2 years ago. It's on display. So if you'd like to join us, send an email to info. I'm sorry, let me try that again. Net, N-E-T-S, at W5FC.org. That's net, N-E-T-S, at W5FC.org. And let us know that you're interested. Put a contact. We'll have your email, but maybe a phone number or something. Anyway, let us know who you are. And we will do this next week. We will get back to Dallas at around 7 p.m., so it's about 12 hours with a 4-hour stay at the museum. We'll have about an hour for lunch as well. So there you have it. Dallas Medical Center, we leave from 7 a.m. sharp from Dallas Medical Center, 7 Medical Way, Farmers Branch. There'll be a talk-in on this frequency, 146.880 megahertz, and then we'll probably move over to 5.2 when we get out of range of the repeater, 146.52. So feel free to ask away on questions. The entire details and agendas over on the W5FC.org website. Thank you. KE5ICF.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any questions? And then we also, if you're interested in satellites, we have the AMSAT. That's a Radio Amateur Satellite Group with 2 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on Echolink, of course you have to have it installed and be registered, but you can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. And they have a live audio link available on their website at http://www.amsatnet.com. And this net originates in Houston. And we have a Dallas AMSAT net for this area every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 with PL tunnel 110.9 and a positive offset. Of course, we have our DARC nets on third Mondays. We have Ham Fixins net. The second Monday is MCOM 101. Fourth Monday is GeekNet. On Wednesdays, the first and third Wednesdays, we have a Veterans net. And of course, Saturdays at 7 p.m. the TechNet, 9 p.m. Skynet, and 10:30 the Afterglow net. And every night we have the National Traffic System training net at 6:30 p.m. And everybody's welcome to check in to any or all of these nets. Speaking of the Afterglow net, Tom, would you like to give us some information on that tonight? KC5OZT.
Oh, absolutely. This is KE5ICX. Here it is. Here we go. Buddy Wade was the world's oldest teenager. At over 500, he didn't look a day over 19. At least his acne problem subsided over 5 centuries ago. His buddy, Buck Rogers, was a great guy who taught Buddy how to fly a dirigible. But while parked at the North Pole, the dirigible is buried by an avalanche. They both awake in the year 2440. It's a world run by Jojo Krakow's great-great-great-great-great-grandson, Killer Kane. Buck and Buddy decide to join a local resistance group. dedicated to stopping bad grammar and super racketeering in the 25th century. So join us tonight for the after-core movie Planet Outlaws from 1939, 1954. Not the 1977 version, nor the 1980 version. Forget it. Nope, it's none of those. It is the 1939, 1954 version. We'll explain that later. 10:30 tonight. If you've seen the movies, let us know. If you haven't, that's okay too. Back to net control.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Tom. This is KH5OZT. All right, do we have anybody else wishing to check in before we move on? Let's see, we do have N5YEO Stephen in San Antonio on Echolink, and K5JIT Randy on Echolink. So I've got you down, and let's see. Do we have anybody that can tell us about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events tonight?
K5KTX.
Okay, Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Carolyn. This is K5KTX. The Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas has a lot of activities if you are interested in getting into astronomy. And first of all, I'll tell you about the monthly meetings, which are held on the fourth Friday of every month, except for November when it's the third Friday because of Thanksgiving, and we usually don't have a meeting in December. The meetings are held at the University of Texas at Dallas campus in Richardson. The meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. in the Science Learning Center, which is SLC, on the campus map. The best place to park is in Lot H, where we've now been given permission to park in orange, gold, or green spaces after 5 o'clock p.m. You can also park in the parking garage as long as you park in a green space. Otherwise, you might get a ticket. The meeting includes programs presented by members or guest speakers and a slideshow of the current constellation of the month. I still don't have any information about the March meeting, but as soon as I do, then I will get that information out. In addition to the meeting, which begins at 7:30, and before I forget, I wanted to mention that the one thing I do know about the March meeting is that it will be in a different building. It's going to be in the building just, I believe, to the northeast of the Science Learning Center. I'm not sure. I know it's very close by, and I will get that information as well. But before the meeting starts at 7:30 p.m., we alternate months with either a beginner astronomy class or a new member orientation. So in the month of February, we had a beginner astronomy class, which was very interesting. And so this month, we will have a new member orientation. And even if you're not a member, it's pretty interesting information, as they present a lot of information about our dark sky site up in Atoka, Oklahoma. And so be sure to join us a little bit early. And all of our meetings are free and open to the public. We also host observing parties every Saturday night beginning at sunset, and each week is at a different location for observing. So you can go to our website, which is texasastro.org, click on the calendar link at the top, and it will show you all of the events that we have coming up. This is the first Saturday, and the first Saturday is the Garland Star Party at Spring Park. However, due to the multi-inch rains that we've had in the last week or so, the park where we have the star party is very, very wet, and so they didn't want to take any chances that somebody might get hurt or that equipment would get damaged, and so they have canceled the star party for tonight. Second Saturday is at Frisco Commons Park in Frisco. Third Saturday is J.W. Williams Park in Cedar Hills. And fourth Saturday is the Stars on the Rock, which is at Lakeshore Park in Rockwall. And again, all of these star parties are open, free to the public, and are great family-friendly events. And it's a great place to learn about telescopes. So if you don't have a telescope and just don't know what to get because there are just so many different types to look at, it's a great place to look at different types. And of course, the people that own those telescopes love to talk about their equipment. And so you can go and ask all kinds of questions. If you do have a telescope and you just don't know how to set it up, you could also bring it to a star party, and somebody there might be able to help you get that set up. And just a couple of other events that we have coming up that I wanted to let you know about is on March the 20th, which is a Tuesday evening, will be the Farmers Branch Star Party, which is held at the Farmers Branch Historical Park. Very, very nice park. They turn the lights out for us, and so it's a great location to see all kinds of stuff right in the middle of the city. The backup date for that will be the Thursday after, which is the 22nd of March. And also, be sure to save the date of April the 14th, which is the second Saturday of April. It will be the next of the Palo Pinto Mountains State Park. You've never heard of the Palo Pinto Mountain State Park? Well, that's because it's technically not a state park yet, but they are working on it as soon as they get the funding. And it is a great dark sky site that is close to the Metroplex. It's just west of Weatherford. And so there will be a star party there on Saturday night beginning at about 5 o'clock p.m. And again, if you will go to our website, texasastro.org, click on the calendar and go to April, and you can get all the details and the directions and everything you would need to know about that. And that's all I've got. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Carolyn.
Well, thank you for that, Kelly. Does anyone have any questions? About any other check-ins before I move on to the topic?
Is November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Alvan.
N5WOI, William, welcome to the net, and let's see, we're going to move on to the topic, though. Imagine most of us started with little refractor telescopes, but I've always admired them, and the largest ones ever built, and very famous ones were built by Alvan Clark and his sons. Alvan Clark and his two sons, George Clark and Alvan Graham Clark, were the main makers of large refracting telescopes in the late 19th century. The firm, Alvan Clark and Son, was founded in 1846 in Cambridgeport, Massachusetts. Five times the Clarks made the objectives for the largest refracting telescopes in the world. The first one It was the 18.5-inch Dearborn telescope, commissioned in 1856 by the University of Mississippi. In 1873, then, they moved up and built the 26-inch objective lens, the U.S. Naval Observatory. And in 1883, they finished a 30-inch telescope for the Pulkovo Observatory in Russia. Then in 1887, they finished the 36-inch objective for the Lick Observatory refractor. And then finally, the 40-inch lens for the Yerkes Observatory in 1897. That is the largest ever built. That is still in operation. Some background. Alvan Clark was born in Asheville, Massachusetts, March 8, 1804. And he was the fifth of 10 children of Abraham Clark. He was a descendant of Thomas Clark, one of the early pilgrims on the Mayflower. Towards the end of his life, Alvan wrote an autobiography that's often quoted. And this is the reason that his life and work is better known than that of his two sons. Both Alvan Graham Clark and George B. Clark devoted their entire careers to also building fine astronomical telescopes. Alvan Graham did the optical work, and George did the mechanical work. But it's very difficult to identify who was responsible for any particular telescope built by the Clarks. So basically all three Clarks are responsible for the achievements of the firm, Alvan Clark and Sons. Alvan, he received a formal education at a local small grammar school and then began to work with his older brother in a wagon maker's shop. In 1826, he married Maria Pease, and they became parents of 4 children, Maria and Caroline, and the 2 sons, George and Alvan Graham. Alvan earned his living as an engraver and later by painting small portraits of exceptional quality in ink and watercolor. And he did this work until about 1860, when the firm Alvan Clark and Sons became lucrative. Seems actually that Alvan turned to telescope making almost by accident. His eldest son, George, who was a student at Andover or Phillips Academy, and he melted down a metal bell in order to make a reflecting telescope. This caught Alvan's attention, and by 1850, the firm Alvan Clark and Sons was founded. The firm grew out of a small shop in East Cambridge, used by George to repair optical instruments. And at that time, the largest refractors were the 15-inch instruments at Pulkovo, Russia, and Harvard observatories, and they had been made in Germany. Time, the largest reflector at that time was a 72-inch Leviathan, erected by the 3rd Earl of Ross in Birr Castle in Ireland. In the middle of the 19th century, refractors were regarded as precision instruments, while reflectors were considered crude and difficult to use, so that for this reason, refractors were the preferred instruments at observatories worldwide. Alvan, he started, though, by building metal reflectors with apertures as large as 8 inches. But in 1847, Alvan, using a 7.5-inch reflector he built, made a drawing of the Orion Nebula. William Bond, the director of the Harvard Observatory, was very impressed with this sketch. It was more complete than the sketch made by William Herschel using his large 20-foot reflector. Clark, though, soon realized that refractors had better light-gathering power and definition, so he started building objective lenses around 1846. William Dawes, who is an English amateur, bought several of his objective lenses, in case you're wondering. A trip to England in 1859, that was the only time Alvan left the U.S., was very important for establishing his reputation as a maker of telescope optics, both abroad and in the U.S. Soon after, he was asked to make a refractor with an aperture of 19 inches for the University of Mississippi. Now, up to this time, the Clarks had only built objectives about 8 inches, but they examined the 15-inch lens of the Harvard scope, and recognizing its imperfections, Clark offered to make a 15-inch. The university wanted the largest telescope of the world, and Clark agreed to make an 18.5-inch objective. So the firm moved to a new location with larger facilities near Harvard to work on this lens. And the two crown and flint discs were finished in 1862. And in fact, Alvan Graham, the son, while testing this lens, he discovered the companion of Sirius on January 1st, 1862. And by this time, though the Civil War had begun and the University of Mississippi was unable to fulfill the agreement with the Clarks, so the Chicago Astronomical Society bought the lens and the telescope installed in the Dearborn Observatory of the University of Chicago in 1866. Meanwhile, Robert Newell, a wealthy Scottish engineer and amateur astronomer, had commissioned a Thomas Cook to build a 25-inch telescope for his private observatory. This took 7 years to build and was, for a few years, the largest in the world. But in 1871, Clark agreed to make an instrument that surpassed this big refractor. And by this time, they had already refigured the lens of several telescopes of the Naval Observatory. And so, to build this new one, the 26-inch crown and flint discs were commissioned from the Chance Brothers Company. And these lenses were finished in 2 years. That was 1873. Made history. The objective was mounted on a metal cube. The previous scopes had used wooden cubes. With this instrument, Asaph Hall discovered the 2 satellites of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, in 1877. brought the attention of Otto Struve of the Puppis Observatory in Russia. So in 1879, he ordered a 30-inch objective from the Clarks. It was completed in 1884. And this refractor, which became the world's largest, and it was extensively used in the study of double stars and proper motion of stars. And then in 1880, the Clark firm was again given a contract to build a 36-inch objective. These blanks were ordered from a firm in Paris. The lens was finished in 1885, and a corrector was completed in 1887. And this refractor was mounted on Mount Hamilton in Lick Observatory in 1887. Lick refractor was one of the most productive instruments in the history of astronomy. With the completion of this instrument, the representatives of the University of Southern California asked the Clarks to make an objective for a larger telescope. So in 1889, they agreed to build a 40-inch lens. And when the disc for the lens arrived, the university, though, was unable to pay the bill. And the opportunity to obtain the largest refractor in the world went to another institution. George Ellery Hale, who had just been appointed the associate professor at the University of Chicago, was able to raise some to buy the lens by convincing Charles Tyson Yerkes to help. Yerkes contributed $300,000 to establish the Yerkes Observatory in Williams Bay, Wisconsin, which became the home of this 40-inch refractor. Alvan Graham Clark, who was the last surviving member of the Clark family, began figuring the lens, and the mount was finished in 1893 and was displayed at the Columbia Exhibition in Chicago that same year. The 40-inch refractor went into operation only in 1897 after they got the Yerkes Observatory built. So that this refractor is still the largest in the world today. So the Clarks were great opticians and perhaps the most skillful ever. And the excellence of their scopes contributed, like I mentioned, several landmark discoveries to astronomy. And they're still recognized even today. So they were some very special people and very talented. So does anyone have any questions?
K5, KTX.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Carolyn. This is K5 KTX. I was hoping to get a little bit more information about this, but I wanted to relay a little bit of history about a telescope that is owned by the Texas Astronomical Society. So I'm trying to remember this history a little bit from the top of my head, and maybe somebody else knows some more. But back in the 1960s and 70s, there was an offshoot of our club called the Junior Texas Astronomical Society. So these were young students, and they built an optical tube assembly. And somewhere just a few years ago, several people were looking in our scope closet up at our DARC site, And we're trying to figure out, you know, the history behind some of the instruments that were there and where some of these telescopes came from. And after doing quite a bit of extensive research, they discovered that the objective lens in this optical tube assembly was an Alvan and Clark 1884 6-inch objective lens. And when they dug through some history, it apparently had previously been used by the University of the Pacific and by astronomers there. And then our group, some members in our group, restored this telescope. And I believe they're using it sometime in some of our public outreach events. So if you get out to any of our public outreach events, and I would imagine that they will probably have it at Palo Pinto Mountain State Park. I think they usually take it out there. But it might give you an opportunity to look through an Alvan Clark objective. So that's all I've got. This is K5KTX. If anybody else out there knows a little bit more, then maybe they can give some information. But it's kind of cool that we have one.
Bravo ZT, yeah, that is a real treasure. Yeah, I will emphasize, they built smaller telescopes too, you know, but I just focused on the largest ones that were new world records each time a larger one was built, but they made a lot of fine scopes and Right, do we have anybody else wishing to check in before we move on? Right, nothing, huh? So, Tom, would you like to take what you can see in the sky?
Yeah, absolutely. I will do that. This is KE5ICX, and we'll go ahead and discuss what you can see in the sky tonight. You can go every night to earthsky.org, pick up this information, and see it yourself. If you want to follow along tonight, we do have the W5FC.org website and the links, or you can go to earthsky.org/tonight, get the same information. So the first thing they mentioned, and we just missed it this evening, I think it was a little overcast. There was some discussion over on Echolink earlier this evening about it, or earlier on the net. But anyway, this is what they say. If you look west 40 minutes after sunset tonight, March 3rd, 2018, and for the coming weeks, you can use the dazzling planet Venus, the sky's third brightest celestial object after the sun and moon, to find Mercury, the solar system's innermost planet. He asked, do you have binoculars? They'll come in handy, as Venus and Mercury are only a little more than a degree apart, or about the width of your little finger at arm's length, for the next several days. Venus and Mercury will remain close enough together on the night sky's dome to fit inside a typical binocular field of 5 degrees or so for the first 3 weeks of March 2018. You might be able to spot both worlds now with the eye alone. You spot Venus but not Mercury, aim binoculars at Venus, and you'll see both worlds in a single binocular field. For the northern hemisphere here, Mercury is just starting its best evening apparition of the year. Both Venus and Mercury are getting farther from the sunset glare day by day. To see Venus and Mercury, find an unobstructed horizon in the direction of the sunset, then look for the planets near the sunset point on your horizon, beginning around 30 or 40 minutes after sundown. At mid-northern latitudes, Venus and Mercury set about 1 hour after sunset. At the equator, the twosome set at 45 minutes after sunset, and the temperate latitudes in the southern hemisphere, Venus and Mercury barely stay longer than 1/2 hour after the sun goes down. So there's another link there, that says west 1 hour after sunset. Mercury is considered the most elusive planet, but it's not hard to see because it's faint. Although Venus is about 12 times brighter than Mercury now, Mercury is the third brightest celestial object to light up the sky very early evening sky right now. It's only a touch dimmer than Sirius, the brightest star of the nighttime sky. Yes, Mercury won't look as bright as Sirius. That's because Mercury has to contend with the dusty thickness of Earth's atmosphere near your horizon. Again, binoculars can help. He says this, throughout the month, Mercury will dim somewhat because of its waning phase. Even so, Mercury will climb up higher in the sky at sunset and stay out longer after sundown. Venus will do likewise, and that's why both worlds will be easier to view later this month. In fact, Mercury will reach its greatest eastern elongation, or its maximum angular separation from the setting sun, on March 15th of this year. At that juncture, Mercury and Venus will stay out about 80 minutes after the sun at mid-northern latitudes. Also, watch for the young waxing crescent moon to sweep by Mercury and Venus on March 18th, 19th, and 20th, as shown in the sky chart. Think of the photo opportunity. So the bottom line is, we'd love to see how many Earth sky readers catch the two inferior planets, Venus and Mercury, after sunset in the coming week or so. Let us know in the comments below, and yes, that's the earthsky.org website. And then from the U.S. Naval Observatory, let's see, I don't want to double up on everything, but let's see here what I can tell you. First of two full moons of the month of March lights up the sky this week, escorting the springtime constellations into the sky. Full moon occurs on March 1st at 7:51 Eastern Standard. This full moon is popularly known as the snow moon or the hunter moon. March will experience its second full moon on the 31st, making this one of those unusual years when January and March each have two full moons, while February has none. We'll have to wait another 19 years for this to occur again. Luna will wash out many of the fainter stars in the springtime sky, but you should be able to spot the bright star Regulus just east of the moon's nearly full disk when they rise on the evening of the 28th. Luna will pass just north of Regulus at 1 a.m. Eastern Time. She pays a visit to bright star Spica on the morning of the 5th, and pre-dawn sky watchers can find her in the company of Jupiter as twilight gathers on the morning of the 7th. Bright winter constellations now crossing the meridian at the end of the evening twilight. By midnight, the stars of Taurus are slipping below the horizon, and Orion follows an hour later. Enjoy these colorful stars while you can, since we're now gaining almost 3 minutes of daylight each day as the sun climbs northward toward the equinox. All too soon, these brilliant luminaries will be replaced by more subdued stars and constellations that mark the coming of spring. One star stands out in springtime. You can find it rising in the east shortly before 9 p.m. Arcturus is the brightest star in the northern hemisphere sky and the fourth brightest of all stars. It is characterized by a slight amber tint, although it may flash through multiple colors as its light passes through the dense layer of air above the horizon. We can look at Arcturus and get something of a preview of the state of the sun. Arcturus is about 3 billion years older than the old Sol and has exhausted the supply of hydrogen that fuses to helium in its core. Hydrogen now fuses in the star, an inert core of helium ash, which has caused Arcturus' girth to swell to some 25 times that of the sun. In turn, the larger surface area means that it is about 170 times as bright as the sun, but its surface temperature is cooler. This gives Arcturus a characteristic color. It is located just under 37 light years away and has the fastest proper motion against more distant stars than any other first magnitude star. It was one of the first stars to have its proper motion measured. In 1718, Edmund Halley found that it had moved about half a degree the apparent diameter of the moon's disk since the era of the ancient Greek astronomer Hipparchus, who compiled the first accurate catalog of star positions some 1,800 years later. Finally, Venus is gradually working her way from the horizon to the evening sky. She's still only visible in the glow of the evening twilight, but by the end of the week, that's over an hour after sunset, you'll find her about 5 degrees above the west and southwest horizon. Mercury joins Venus by the weekend. Use binoculars to locate the fleet planet, which will be just a degree to the right of the much brighter Venus on the evening of the 4th. And then finally, a little anecdote here. He says, I found myself awake at 5:30 a.m. this morning, so I set up a telescope to catch a glimpse of Jupiter before sunrise. The giant planet is just past the meridian at this point, and I was treated to a nice view of the planet. Four Galilean moons and a tiny shadow of the moon Europa slowly skimming over the cloud top. Just east of the meridian, I found the ruddy star Antares, and even redder, Mars, easily spotted as the sky began to brighten. Saturn brought up the rear, a yellow-hued glimmer above the teapot of Sagittarius. These three planets will all be well placed in the evening sky during the summer months, but it's still nice to see them in the pre-dawn sky with the chirping of springtime birds providing the soundtrack. You don't think he's ready for spring, do you? Well, that's it from me and from the U.S. Naval Observatory. Back to you, Miss Carolyn, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom, and we'll move on to the Constellation. Remember that there are links on the DARC website to the photos and a map that go with this. But tonight I was going to look at the Constellation Puppis. It's not an animal. It represents the stern of the ship, Argo Navis. That was the one that Jason and the Argonauts sailed to get the Golden Fleece. This constellation was later divided into several smaller ones, and Puppis is the largest of the three. And the brightest star in the constellation is Zeta. It also has a name Naos, I guess. It's Naos. Magnitude 2.2. But it's a Class O star. It's hot blue supergiant, and it's one of the few O-class stars that can be seen without binoculars. It's the 62nd brightest star in the sky. And the second brightest star is Puppis. This is about magnitude 2.7 and a double star with an orange Class K giant and a fainter magnitude 6.8 companion. It varies, in fact, in magnitude from 2.7 to 2.85, but it is the brightest member of an open cluster, known appropriately as the Puppis cluster. And there's a very nice variable star that I always love to observe, known as L2 Puppis. In the lower part of the constellation, it's a red giant. It's a semi-regular variable, and it varies from magnitude 2.6 to 6, with a period of 140 days. Which makes it very easy to follow in binoculars, and actually you can reach at maximum with a naked eye. And if you want to try observing this variable, you can go to AAVSO and download charts for it, and it's very fascinating. Okay, and Puppis is loaded with deep sky objects. Now you do need a good southern horizon, and of course, because this goes pretty low in the south. But the first one we'll look at is M46, a nice open cluster, about magnitude 6.1. And it appears that it has a planetary nebula in it, NGC 2438, but they think the two are unrelated and just happen to lie along the same line of sight. And then we have another nice open cluster, M47, magnitude 4.2, and it's only about a degree west of M46. And so that makes a nice pair to try to observe. One enough. We have M93, another, guess what, an open cluster. It's about magnitude 6, and it's about 3,000 light years away from Earth. But again, it's very visible in binoculars. And then the next object is NGC 2451, and it's an open cluster. It's to the right of one called 2477, magnitude 2.8, and actually these two clusters, one at a distance of 197 parsecs, and the other 358 parsecs. This is in, so they're labeled 2451A and 2451B. And like I said, these two are up and to the right of another cluster, open cluster, 2477. That's a nice open cluster, magnitude 5.8, and it's about 300 stars. It's called one of the top open clusters in the sky, and easy to find. It's about 2.5 degrees to the northwest of the bright star, Zeta Puppis. Our next object, weird name, is called the Skull and Crossbones Nebula. It's NGC 2467. It's a star-forming region surrounding a stellar cluster, 2467. And with an age of a few million years at most, it's a very active stellar nursery, with new stars being born continuously from the clouds of dust and gas. And if you look at the image, it's looking like a colorful cosmic ghost. It contains open clusters, Hafner 18 in the center, Hafner 19 in the middle right, and it's located inside the smaller pink region, as well as large areas of ionized gas. The bright star at the center of the large pink region at the bottom is a massive young star that's helping shape the structure of this whole nebular region. It is a beautiful sight. And then we have number 24, or NGC 2439. Now this is an open cluster, magnitude 6.9. It's a good object for a small telescope. And then the next picture is NGC 2440. Now this is a planetary nebula, and the white dwarf at the center is one of the hottest known. And this nebulous chaotic structure suggests that this star sheds mass episodically. During each outburst, the star expels material in different directions. This can be seen in the two bow-tie-shaped lobes. The nebula is rich in clouds of dust, and some form long dark streaks pointing away from the star. And the colors correspond to material expelled of the star. Blue corresponds to helium, blue-green to oxygen, and red to nitrogen and hydrogen. But that makes it a very beautiful sight. And, there's two other clusters, NGC 2298 and 2546, that you can find on charts that are nice. And then we have another 2440, nice planetary nebula, like I said. But it was footnoted in the Battlestar Galactica series. Episode's Cross Part 2 is one of the major markers on the way to Earth. And in the show, it's called the Onion Nebula. When they call it a supernova remnant, but it resembles a 2440 and is located 4,000 light years from Earth. So if you watch the series, you might look for that in that episode. So Puppis is far to the south, but it's definitely worth taking a tour through it and seeing a lot of these beautiful objects. KC50ZT, any questions? Alright, we'll move on then to the next section, which is a script blew off of, I believe that's Brenda's, any new discoveries, KC50ZT.
Thank you, Carolyn. We're running a little bit long tonight, so I'm just going to read half of each of these articles. The first one is entitled, "The Moon Formed Inside a Vaporized Earth Synestia." A new explanation for the moon's origin has it forming inside the Earth when our planet was a seething, spinning cloud of vaporized rock called a synestia. The new model, led by researchers at the University of California, Davis, and Harvard University, resolved several problems in lunar formation. The new work explains features of the moon that are hard to resolve with current ideas, said Sarah Stewart, professor of Earth and Planetary Sciences at UC Davis. The moon is chemically almost the same as Earth, but with some differences, she said. This is the first model that can match the pattern of the moon's composition. Current models of lunar formation suggest that the moon formed as a result of a glancing blow between the early Earth and a Mars-sized body, commonly called Theia. According to the model, the collision between Earth and Theia drew through molten rock and metal into orbit that collided together to make the moon. The new theory relies instead on a synestia, a new type of planetary object proposed by Stuart and Simon Locke, graduate student at Harvard. Synestia forms when a collision between planet-sized objects results in a rapidly spinning mass of molten and vaporized rock with part of the body in orbit around itself. The whole object pulls out into a giant donut of vaporized rock. and STs don't last that long, perhaps only hundreds of years. They shrink rapidly as they radiate heat, causing rock vapor to condense into liquid, finally collapsing into a molten planet. I'll stop there on that one. The other article is titled, Search for First Stars Uncovers Dark Matter. A team of astronomers led by Professor Judd Bowman of Arizona State University unexpectedly stumbled upon dark matter, the most mysterious building block of outer space, while attempting to detect the earliest stars in the universe through radio wave signals. The idea that these signals implicate dark matter is based on a second Nature paper published this week, which suggests that the signal is proof of interactions between normal matter and dark matter in the early universe. This discovery offers the first direct proof that dark matter exists and that it is composed of low-mass particles. The signal, recorded by a novel radio telescope called EDGES, dates to 180 million years after the Big Bang. What the universe is made of. Dark matter is the key to unlocking the mystery of what the universe is made of, says Professor Barkana. We know quite a bit about the chemical elements that make up the Earth, Sun, and the other stars, but most of the matter in the universe is invisible and known as dark matter. The existence of dark matter is inferred from its strong gravity, but we have no idea what kind of substance it is. Hence, dark matter remains one of the greatest mysteries in physics. To solve it, we must travel back in time. See back in time, since it takes light time to reach us. We see the sun as it was 8 minutes ago, while the immensely distant first stars in the universe appear to us on Earth as they were billions of years in the past. Professor Bowman and colleagues reported the detection of a radio wave signal at a frequency of 78 megahertz. The width of the observatory file is largely consistent with expectations, but they also found it had a larger amplitude corresponding to deeper absorptions than predicted, indicating that the primordial gas was colder than expected. Professor Barkana suggests that the gas cooled through the interaction of hydrogen with cold dark matter. Okay, I'll quit there. These are both from ScienceDaily.com. Back to Nat. This is W5OZL. Thank you, Brenda, and this is KC5OZT. We'll move on to Kelly with space exploration and history. Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Carolyn. This is K5KTX. A dramatic magnetic power struggle at the sun's surface lies at the heart of solar eruptions. New research using NASA data shows. The work highlights the role of the sun's magnetic landscape, or topology, in the development of solar eruptions that can trigger space weather events around Earth. The scientists considered solar flares, which are intense bursts of radiation and light. Many strong solar flares are followed by coronal mass ejection, or CME, a massive bubble-shaped eruption of solar material and magnetic fields, but some are not. What differentiates the two situations is not clearly understood. Using data from NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, or SDO, the scientists examined in October 2014 Jupiter-sized sunspot group, an area of complex magnetic fields often the site of solar activity. This was the biggest group in the past 2 solar cycles in a highly active region. Though conditions seemed ripe for an eruption, the region never produced a major CME on its journey across the sun. It did, however, emit a powerful X-class flare, the most intense class of flares. What determines, the scientists wondered, whether a flare is associated with a CME? The team of scientists included SCO's observations of the magnetic fields of the sun's surface and powerful models that calculate the magnetic field of the sun's corona, or upper atmosphere, and examined how it evolved in the time just before the flare. The model reveals a battle between two key magnetic structures, a twisted magnetic rope, known to be associated with the onset of CMEs, and a dense cage of magnetic fields overlying the rope. The scientists found that this magnetic cage physically prevented a CME from erupting that day. Just hours before the flare, the sunspot's natural rotation contorted the magnetic rope, and it grew increasingly twisted and unstable, like a tightly coiled rubber band. But the rope never erupted from the surface. Their model demonstrates it didn't have enough energy to break through the cage. It was, however, volatile enough that it lashed through part of the cage, triggering the strong solar flare. By changing the conditions of the cage in their model, the scientists found that if the cage were weaker that day, a major CME would have erupted on October 24th, 2014. The group is interested in further developing their model to study how the conflict between the magnetic cage and rope plays out in other eruptions. Their findings are in a paper published in Nature on February the 8th of 2018. And in a somewhat related mission, understanding the contribution that aurora make to the total amount of energy that enters and leaves Earth's geospace system, referred to as auroral forcing, is one of the major goals of the NASA-funded Auroral Zone Upwelling Rocket Experiment, or AZUR. AZUR is the first of 8 sounding rocket missions launching over the next 2 years as part of an international collaboration of scientists known as the Grand Initiative CUSP. These missions will study the processes occurring inside the Earth's polar cusp, where the planet's magnetic field lines bend down into the atmosphere and allow particles from space to intermingle with those of earthly origin. And nearby Aurora Oval, which AZUR will focus on. AZUR will study the flow of particles in the ionosphere, the electrically charged layer of the atmosphere that acts as Earth's interface to space, focusing specifically on the E and F regions. AZUR will focus specifically on measuring the vertical winds in these regions, which create a tumultuous particle soup that redistributes the energy, momentum, and chemical constituents of the atmosphere. Existing wind measurements from ground-based instruments show evidence of significant structure at scales between 6 miles and 60 miles wide in both the charged particle drifts and the neutral winds. But so far, the Institute's scientific measurements of winds have been limited to a small set of altitudes, and already those measurements don't fit in with what we have predicted. To better understand the forces at play, in early March, the AZUR team will launch 2 sounding rockets near simultaneously. Waiting to launch until the conditions are just right, the rockets will fly up into space, making measurements of the atmospheric density and temperature with instruments on the rockets, and deploying visible tracers, trimethyl aluminum, TMA, and a barium-strontium mixture, which ionizes when exposed to sunlight. These mixtures create colorful clouds that allow researchers to track the flow of neutral and charged particles, respectively. The tracers will be released at altitude 71 to 155 miles high and pose no hazard to residents in the region. By tracking the movement of these colorful clouds via ground-based photography and triangulating their moment-by-moment position in 3 dimensions, AZUR will provide valuable data on the vertical and horizontal flow of particles in 2 key regions of the ionosphere over a range of different altitudes. Such measurements are critical if we're to truly understand the effects of the mysterious yet beautiful aurora. The results will be a key to a better understanding of the effects of auroral forcing on the atmosphere, including how and where the auroral energy is deposited. And in space history for this past week, beginning on February the 24th, 2011, Space Shuttle Discovery lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center on her final mission, STS-133. The destination was the International Space Station. After this mission, Discovery was retired and is now on display at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. On February the 26th, 2014, the NASA Kepler mission team announced the discovery of 715 new planets. 305 different stars. This trove of data showed that multi-planet solar systems like our own appeared to be common. Nearly 95% of these newly discovered planets were smaller than Neptune, which is almost 4 times the size of Earth. This discovery marked a significant increase in the number of known small-sized planets more akin to Earth. Launched in 2009 for a 3.5-year mission, the Kepler spacecraft continues to hunt for exoplanets after nearly 9 years. March the 1st, back in 1966, the Soviet spacecraft Venera 3 arrived on the surface of Venus, making it the first human-made probe to reach the surface of another planet. Unfortunately, communication with Venera 3 had been lost on February the 16th. No data from Venus was returned by Venera 3. On the same day, 16 years later, Venera 13 made a successful soft landing on Venus. Also on March the 1st, 2002, Space Shuttle Columbia and STS-109 launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center to begin the 4th Hubble Space Telescope servicing mission. During the mission, astronauts replaced Hubble solar panels and installed the advanced camera for surveys, which took the place of Hubble's faint object camera, the telescope's last original instrument. And also on March the 1st, just 2 years ago, astronaut Scott Kelly and cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko safely landed in Kazakhstan after a 1-year stay on the International Space Station. And I believe the results from their 1-year expedition was just released just a few weeks ago.
Normal state.
March the 2nd, 2004, Rosetta and Philae launched into space on a 10-year journey to Comet 67P. Rosetta was a space probe built by the European Space Agency. Along with Philae, its lander module, Rosetta performed a detailed study of Comet 67P. And I'm going to skip on to the last one, which is March the 3rd, 1915. Congress authorized the creation of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, or NACA, which was the precursor to NASA. And that's all I've got. This is K5KTX. Back to you.
Thank you, Kelly. And since we are running a little late, we'll skip the satellite passes. But do we have anybody wishing to check in for final call?
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
So we won't check Dave or Hal in, so tonight we had 24 hams participating on the air. Thank you to all who checked in. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. Remember, on this net, the sky is never the limit. And we're always looking for net control stations, this and other nets. If you'd like to try your hand, send an email to network2net@W5FC.org. And you can follow this topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, and audio and video streams and other resources by going to W5FC.org. So, until next Saturday night, this is KC50ZT, Carolyn, and I'll be closing the net at 10:30 p.m. local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. KC50ZT, clear.
Okay, Afterglow discussion is coming up. Our movie tonight is another fine offering, Planet Outlaws, 1939 and I think 54. But let's take 5 minutes to do all the necessary things we need to do. So it's 10:31 now. Let's come back at 10:36. See you then. W5FC. is W5FC with this evening's edition of Afterglow. We're going to take check-ins. I tell you what, first thing, let's have Tom do his usual synopsis of our movie, KE5ICX. Can you do that for us?
Why, of course I can. May I?
Certainly. Would you please go ahead?
All right, very good. This comes from Wikipedia, the authority on everything in the universe and beyond. This is what they say about this particular movie, which is actually a serial, a 1939 Universal serial to be exact, starring Buster Crabbe, who previously played the title character in two Flash Gordon serials and would return for a third in 1940 as the eponymous hero Constance Moore. Jackie Moran and Anthony Ward. Well, I think that's a mistake. At any rate, it's not a good sentence. It was based on the Buck Rogers character created by Philip Francis Nolan, which appeared in magazines and comic strips since the 1928. On to the plot. In 1938, Lieutenant Buck Rogers, played by Buster Crabbe, and Buddy Wade, played by Jackie Moran, are part of a crew of a dirigible flying over the North Pole. They are caught in a savage storm and they crash. They are ordered to release the experimental Nirvana gas, which, unbeknownst to them, will put them in suspended animation until they are rescued. How convenient. The Nirvana gas works, but the dirigible is buried in an avalanche and is not found until 500 years have passed. When Buck and Buddy are found, they awaken in the year 2440 to a world ruled by the ruthless dictator Killer Kane, played by Anthony Ward, and his army of super racketeers. Only those who live in the hidden city, run by the benevolent scientist Dr. Hauer, played by C. Shaw, and his military counterpart, Air Marshal Cragg, I thought that was a Klingon name, played by William Gould, resist the criminal rulers of Earth. Buck and Buddy join the resistance. They volunteer to go to Saturn, where they hope they can find their fight against Kane. Wilma Deering, played by Constance Moore, is assigned to accompany them. Saturn is run by Alder, that's Guy Usher, to you and me, and the Council of the Wise and Prince Talon. To the dismay of Buck and Buddy, they also encounter that Kane has dispatched ambassadors of his own, headed by his loyal henchman, Captain Laska, played by Henry Brendan. The serial then becomes a back-and-forth struggle between Buck and Kane to secure the military support of Saturn. I doubly agree with that one. And back and forth, back and forth. It was a 12-part movie serial that was then distilled down to whatever the heck the name of this movie. Oh, Planet Outlaws. In 1953, the 1939 movie serial was edited into a feature film. Then it was edited again to a feature length entitled Destination Saturn for syndication to television in 1965. Finally, the serial was edited once again into a feature film format in the late 1970s. This version simply entitled Buck Rogers, with a theatrical poster advertising, quote, Star Wars owes it all to Buck Rogers. It was later sold on videotape in the early 1990s and then sold into white slavery somewhere in India. No, that isn't there. It's appeared in 16 millimeter all the way down to 8 millimeter and then reel-to-reel video. I don't know what it's on now, probably on a Viewmaster somewhere. You can see it that way. This movie has been seen so many different ways. It's
hard to believe. Okay, I'm done. KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we're going to do this like any other net. Check in and we'll go down the list and ask you questions. And let's start with low power and short time. Please come now. None heard. Let's go on to general, and please mention whether or not you have seen this fine movie.
Yes. November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving. Yes, I did see this amazing movie.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Yes, I saw it too. Oh, the silence is deafening. KE5ICX, Tom. Yeah, I saw it.
Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, and I saw it too.
W5EBB, David in Dallas. Yes, I sort of saw it off and on. My attention span was drifting. W5EBB.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo. Burl, I did see the movie.
Okay, station just before Burl, and I doubled with Burl. I missed your call. Would you please come back with it? Okay, the caller right after KC5OZT. I did not get your call. Okay, well, we'll circle back to that. I got, so much enthusiasm here. Inside BB, NT5TM Tony, K5ICX Tom, KC5OZT Carolyn, Mystery Call, and KF5TSK Burl. And everybody has seen the movie, and we're so excited. All right, how about Echolink check-ins?
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J, and I actually did not see the film.
This is KF5TDS, Billy. I also did not see the film.
Okay, we got KG5BZWJ and KF5PDS Billy. And you can watch the film later. I know you're going to want to. But you can certainly put your 2 bits worth in. Okay, anybody else from any mode now? Okay, first let's talk about the plot. N5BB. Bill, what did you think?
This is N5BB. I might use the word yuck. This was a 12-part movie serial, all compressed into one pretty short movie. And I believe they edited out about 80% of the continuity content. So for me, the plot was jumping back and forth, and the back and forth was between the Earth and Saturn, and it was doing it so rapidly, I was lost. There were the good guys, and there were the bad guys, and then there were those other guys on Saturn, but the actual plot and the continuity of it was not very much in existence for me because of all the editing. Also, let's see, there's a lot of plot things to talk about, but I don't want to talk about all these. They're just too crazy. Let's see. I might want to say that how can Buck fly spacecraft so rapidly? He appears, for some crazy reason they say, we like you, and then immediately he's flying a spacecraft. There's no continuity or description of how that happened. So anyway, I could go on and on and on and on, but I'll let somebody else do that. N5BB.
Okay, thanks. NC5TM. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Brenda. I have to first support Bill's comments that cutting this long children's serial down produced a plot of dubious coherency, where you have people playing from one planet to another, and then here, let's interject a fist fight. The continuity was very forced. I suspect as just a fun children's story that the original serial was probably better, because, I mean, this is fundamentally a very silly movie with, you know, I've seen gamma rays and X-rays and microwaves and all sorts of rays. I've never seen a ray that makes spaceships invisible, or spaceships that make a funny humming as they go. So the plot is very weak. All we would have been hoping for here was a sense of fun and adventure. And by chopping it down so much, that was weakened into the really sort of like a warm, buttery block. I kind of made that noise wrong. Block, you might have children's building blocks. I mean like blah or blurg or bleh. I wanted to make some sort of vile noise there. The plot was deplorable. NT5TM.
Okay, next on the list, K5ICX. Tom, What did you think?
All right, I'll tell you what I think. I think that whoever chose this movie should be put into the robot brainless brigade. This was a terrible movie. I'll tell you what, if you really want to see it, and there are some redeemable things about it, it is available over on dailymotion.com, chapters 1 through 12, with actual storyline development. It starts the Westmore Observatory, everything. It's great. I'll bet you there's even a Clark telescope there. So and cops, too. This wasn't in the movie, not at all. Not in our version at any rate. So maybe it's worth watching that way. Overall, yeah, because they condensed this chapter series into an hour and 9-minute movie, there's a lot of nothing. Well, let me reset and tell you what I really think. The thing that surprised me about this, now that I know that this was a much longer, each episode is like 20 minutes, so they really condensed it down. They didn't do any of the good parts. They did all the flying back and forth, and shooting, and flying back and forth, and more shooting, and back and forth between Saturn and Earth, like this, right down the street to the left of the drugstore. It's back and forth, and the buzzing, and lots of buzzing, and back and forth, and shooting, and back and... Okay, I'm done. KE5ICX.
Take a deep breath. Okay, KC5OZT. What did you think of the plot? I thought it was sort of confusing or not too clear, but now knowing that it was spliced together from a TV series, I understand why it, not very much explanation, and in black and white, sometimes it's hard to tell who was good guys and who was the bad guys. I mean, if you just want some light entertainment or something, I guess it was okay, it's not the best I've ever seen. But at least the good guys won. Let's put it that way. KC5OZT.
Inside BB, can I quickly correct something that Carolyn said?
Go ahead, N5BB.
For those that haven't seen this movie, it came out in 1953. It was not squeezed together from a television serial. It was squeezed together from a 1939 movie serial. So all of the special effects and the poor quality of the actual visual stuff was done in 1939, and then 14 years later, after World War II, they put together the thing we saw with a really horrible guy at the start and the end trying to relate this to the Cold War in 1953. Inside BB.
Alrighty. And a session that I missed earlier, if you're still here, please come back to us.
That may have been the David and Dallas W5FC
Yes, I did not get it, David, but I still don't have your call. Could you come back very slowly and loudly and phonetically?
Whiskey 5, Echo, Bravo, Bravo.
Hey, Whiskey 5, Echo, Bravo, Bravo. David, do you have anything to add to our discussion?
Well, like others have mentioned, the visuals were not bad, but I was soon trying to see if my TV had a volume that went lower than mute. W5EVB.
Okay. Well, KF5TSK, you saw the movie. Tell us your opinion.
This is KF5TSK. Well, the first thing I would say would be that I was really disappointed with Buck Rogers. He's going to be an ambassador to another planet, and he goes and tells them he's a rebel. And it was like, what's going on here? He's not a hero. One thing I did like about it, the movie, was seemed like scientific. They had thought of a lot of things. I noticed I guess it looked like a TV set, and so it looked like they projected correctly into the future. I want to talk about maybe the special effects later on. Can't find TSK back to net.
Okay, KG5 BZW. Jay, you didn't see the movie, but do you have anything to add?
Hello, this is KG5BZW. I got to thinking, it seems like this movie is not really that good, but I got to thinking about the format itself and just if it would be worth discussing, how the original serial film was intended to be consumed. Let me reset. So I'm on Wikipedia, as of course we always like to use, and I don't know. Unfortunately, this question only occurred to me as I was literally just about a couple of, when actually Carolyn mentioned TV series, and yeah, of course it's not TV series, but of course, so it seems that I'm really kind of curious about these Saturday matinees that these would the original series would be shown at, and just how there's probably a little bit of filler material in the original just because it would be a serial, but obviously there's going to be stuff that you could scrape out, but to scrape it, to combine it into something that's an hour and 9 minutes when it's 12? Yeah, that just seems crazy. I got nothing else to add. This is KG5BZW.
Okay, KF5 PBS, Billy, do you have anything you'd like to tell us?
No, I guess kind of makes me a little bit glad I didn't see it, but I don't know. I feel, left out. I should have watched it, but oh well. But as far as Buck Rogers goes, I just remember growing up with the late 70s, Gil Gerard and the Aaron Gray show. So that will always be my favorite Buck Rogers. But and also the old serial with Buster Crabbe from the 30s was really good as well, as far as like vintage Buck Rogers goes. But anyway, nothing really to add since I didn't see it, but that's what I'll say for now, just a couple of random comments. So I'll throw it back to you. This is KF5PDS, back to
Okay, thank you. Well, I thought the movie was really stupid. It didn't make any sense. The plot was just a mess. You couldn't make any sense out of it, and what you could make sense of was illogical. I will say this, I'm really glad to know what Saturn is like. I had no idea it was like that, and we learn a lot by watching these things. And if you didn't see the movie, Saturn it's a lot like Earth in a mountainous area, and you can breathe it and walk around on it. So now we know. Okay, let's go back at the top and talk about the special effects. So N5BB, go ahead.
Oh, the special effects. This is N5BB. Let me look at my notes here. First, let me start off just by saying, slightly unrelated topic. There was one woman in the movie, Wilma Deering. Everybody else were men. So, in that view, I guess Wilma Deering was a special effect. Anyway, I think the quality was extremely poor special effects. The spacecraft were all ugly, angular, just ugly. They moved in a very weird, erratic method, like marionettes, kind of jerked along, with smoke and sparks just kind of randomly oozing out of the back. And then they sometimes moved in formation like this, which was even worse. And it just appeared to me that even a child would say, ooh, that's really cheesy. Poor quality stuff. The spacecraft, when they moved, made a buzzing noise that was extremely annoying. And it sounded like it was recorded one time, and they played the exact same buzzing noise every time you saw these spacecraft moving. Just the same exact little duh. And it was not good. It was not fun. Every time you saw the spacecraft, I just wanted to close my eyes and make it go away. What other stuff? Oh, they had anti-gravity belts, which were, I guess, maybe a little interesting. At one point, they were described as being a newer version of a parachute. So it confused me at first, because these people are jumping out of the spacecraft. By the way, the atmosphere in Saturn is exactly the same as the atmosphere on Earth. and there's a hard surface. So as they fall out of the spacecraft, there's wind going by. So they're battling the wind before they let go and fall down. You think they're going to crush, but they have a little tiny pack on their belly that evidently is the anti-gravity machine. It's not a parachute. And to tell you the truth, that was probably one of the best special effects, is that when they landed it did kind of look like there was an anti-gravity thing. That was okay. That was the only good part. There were weird floating microphones, and if you didn't look carefully, you might have missed this. But when they were talking on the radios, let's say in their spacecraft, this microphone came up. It was little stubby cylinder. It was several inches in diameter. It looked like it floated up from the radio and kind of floated around in the air in front of them. I don't know what that was supposed to. It was crazy. You look at it, what in the world is going on? It wasn't. Oh, by the way, when they're in space, there is no. There's gravity, so there's no floating around from the lack of gravity. When they're in the spacecraft, it's just exactly like they're on ground as far as gravity, etc. But this little microphone is floating around, which made no sense at all. What else? Special effects. I guess that's it. Oh, by the way, one more thing. When the scientist, the chief scientist, when he was in his area, and they called him on the radio, you could tell it was a scientist because they had a special effect of the dry ice put in water, which makes a little fog coming out of the containers. So he was always like pouring some things in his chemistry set into an Erlenmeyer flask or something. He was doing that every time they called him, and special effects were like I say, the dry ice in the water. Another weird special effect was the helmets. They were very thin. They looked like a swim cap. I don't know what good they did, because they were like skin tight. Inside BB.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I did notice those floating microphones, and Wilma would say, "The Earth calling planet Saturn." Like, what? It's just so infantile. Okay, next on the list, Tony, NT5TM.
Well, Brenda, infantile is right. I was really struck by the Earth calling planet Saturn, as if there's only one radio on Earth and only one person on Saturn who might conceivably have a radio. The special effects in this movie always detracted from the story. They were decidedly inferior, even by the standards of the late 30s. The special effects in movies of the late 20s were often better than this crud. Here are the miniatures that were used in Metropolis that often had tiny mirrors built in so that you could have live people standing off to one side who would appear to be moving inside the tiny miniatures, to these spaceships that they couldn't even do real marionettes. They couldn't lower the spaceships to land in the desert set. They looked like they were just tossed onto the set. They just kind of flopped down when they landed. It was, in every respect, distracting, silly, and ridiculous. They made nothing better. I woke up with a sore throat and a headache, and if I hadn't felt bad when I woke up, I wouldn't have watched this movie, because I think a person in good health would have their health weakened by having seen these special effects. NT5TM.
Okay, K5ICX.
All right, I'm gonna take this thing out of the nosedive that everybody's pushed the yoke forward and headed to sparking spaceships down into the Saturn atmosphere and trying to destroy our common movie heritage. I object, Your Honor. Well, yeah, it's pretty terrible, I agree, but there's a few things that are good about it. First off, I'm watching, as we are talking, the complete episode number 1 of whatever this is, Flash Gordon. And it actually plays out better. I'm not listening to the dialogue, of course, but I'm watching and things are moving a little slower. There's character development. There's still the buzzing and the crashing and the all the stuff that goes along with it. Yeah, that's still there. But there's one thing that I thought was interesting, and we never see it. Two things. There's a cute dog you never get to see. That's the first part. And carry the poor dog around and revive him. And then the other thing is, let me read that. They have a transporter, not the Enterprise. This came many years earlier, 1939. They have a transporter, and it works. You open the door, you get inside, it goes through that little acid trip thing, and then you end up someplace else. So they have a transporter. Maybe their spaceships are inferior and sparking and making that annoying buzzing sound, but they have a transporter. Now, I will mention this. Now, we won't do this later on because we're just talking special effects. But I'll go ahead and add in props and costuming and all that stuff. Props overall, really, actually, when you look at it, it's not too bad. There's a scene, earlier scene, you can't see it because it's not in the movie, but they had the dirigible. Well, yeah, they did have the dirigible, which ends up being a redress of one of Jojo Krakow, whatever the guy's name was, a spaceship with the door exactly in the same place as the dirigible. And so they redressed the sets. What was I going to say? Oh, yes, I got the notes here. Art Deco everywhere. I thought some of the sets that they had, the small sets that they created for the spacecraft were pretty cool, very Art Deco-ish. Some of the standing sets when they were going either to Saturn or Earth, those were pretty cool. I liked those a lot. Let me reset again. I thought those were all very good. And then lastly, I thought that in this movie version that the moving stars thing, going to Saturn with the kind of the Star Trek warp speed thing, was in that add-in for 1950-something. Actually, it is in the original serial with the stars moving at different speeds and create acceleration and speed. I thought that was actually, it's in the original. It's in the 1939. That's a very clever effect. So rather than just dissing this not-so-good serial, there are some redeemable quotes. Well, semi-redeemable, not much. I'm done. KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. And by the way, I looked up the time it takes for radio waves to travel from here to Saturn, and it's about an hour and a half. So the instantaneous radio conversation was really stupid. All right, next, KC5OZT. Carolyn, go ahead. Well, one thing that struck me was using the same kind of basic spaceship in the atmosphere, and then also for the space flight, you know, I was thinking, you know, when that was, why didn't they use airplanes in the air, you know, the patrols? Because they certainly had them now, you know, but I don't know, maybe they just didn't want to, they were saving money on the
that effect, you know, but it was one thing that didn't seem right, and sometimes, like I said, it was hard to tell who was the good guys from the bad guys, or Saturnians, I guess, from the Earthmen, you know, because of the costumes. Now, part of that was due to not being in color, maybe, but that was one thing that struck me as hard to keep up with, KT50ZT.
Okay, thanks. W5EBB, you have any comments? Guess he's gone. KF5PSK, Burl, what do you have to say?
That's KF5PSK. Well, first thing I would say that that fabulous city, I was noticing they had a elevated, like mass transit at the top, and they had a model freight train at the bottom, and I was like, you know, that's really funny that, you know, you're 500 years later and it still looks the same. Also, the hats, I thought of them as being shower caps, and the man from Saturn, his looked more like a Roman military hat. You know, the spaceship, they had a hands-free microphone, and it just seemed like something that, you know, was beyond anything that, well, with hands-free, you know, you can't have any sound in the room or you'll hear everything. Also, on their aircraft, they had it was like a secretary's chair at the main console, and it would roll and swivel. It's like in a moving aircraft, you would have something like that. That's all my comments. KF5PSK back to net.
Yeah, they kept knocking the chair over. The only chair. Everybody else had to stand up, which I've never seen anything like that in science fiction movies, to have a spacecraft that just didn't have any chairs, or even an airplane. Maybe it was a budgetary thing. Okay, Jay, KF5BZW, or KT5BZW.
Nothing really else to add here, except I think I might try maybe tomorrow to see the first of the actual serial instead of the movie. I'm still kind of thinking it might be, at least, I don't know, oh my gosh, I'm tired and ready, and the comments I've heard about the film just turned me off of that, but the serial might still have some redeemable value, so that's my 2 cents. I almost feel like I've done the exact opposite of that film. Just add in random words until I'm just really out of it. Okay. KT5BZW back to that.
Alrighty, Billy, KF5PDS.
I really don't have anything to add, so I'll pass it back to you, KF5PDS.
I do love Art Deco, and I don't know what it is about Art Deco, but it always looks futuristic, and I have never quite understood that, but it does to me. So, okay, any additional check-ins now? Okay then, we'll kick this back out there and you can do any topic that you want. So, N5BD, go ahead.
Okay. This is N5BB. Well, for those that haven't seen it maybe, this movie has a television in it. Remember, this is 1939 when television was still experimental. So they have this screen, and they can view other areas. It isn't obvious to me if there is a camera on the other end, or they can just remotely view any place they want. That wasn't really obvious, but they have some way of doing that, which is kind of interesting. Let's see. Oh, the name of the evil guy was Killer Kane. Killer, K-A-N-E. Which, oh man, that's bad. I don't know. Killer Kane. Is he really a bad guy with a name like Killer Kane? Of course. So Tom should talk about the music. The music, besides, we talked about the sound effects, the buzz that's always there, and there's a few other obnoxious sound effects. The music is kind of thrown in there. It's various little things, snippets thrown in there, and the reason is it's from other movies, mostly The Bride of Frankenstein, believe it or not, and they have this different music left over from some other movies, and they just throw little snippets of it in various places. I don't think there was any movie music created for this movie, or the TV series, I mean, not the TV series, the movie series originally. I believe this all came from some 30s movies, like Bride of Frankenstein, and they put these little snippets of music in there. Really cheesy. What else do I have to say? Let's see. I've done most of everything else. Oh, there's a comment that the sidekick says. He has a forgettable name. I can't remember. But he's Buck's sidekick. And he says, oh, we were in suspended animation. Oh, by the way, they were in suspended animation for 500 years. And when the humans in the future found them, they were up in the icy area, but one of the guys says, oh, he has like normal human body temperature. See, it doesn't make any sense for you to be there 500 years. You're not rancid. You don't even, you look like, after some procedure, which they don't show us, they're like normal. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't look like they were in the hospital or anything. They just kind of like threw some water in their face. I don't know. They didn't show that. They did something, and suddenly Buck Rogers and his sidekick are just great. And then the sidekick says, 500 years, we could be our own, I could be my own great-grandfather. So you think 500 years, great-grandfather, he would be assuming that each generation was like 160 years old or something. That makes no sense at all, my great-grandfather. It would be like your great-great-great-great-grandfather. What else? again, I have to just comment again on the really bad section at the very start and the very end, inserted in 1953, talking about like UFOs and other things, and the state of the world and the Cold War kind of things, and then suddenly jumping to this Buck Rogers thing. To me, that's stupid. Let's take that little piece in there. By the way, the Flash Gordon was a higher quality series, and this is just a rip-off of the Flash Gordon stuff. In 5BB.
Alrighty. Next, NT5TM, Tony.
I think we have all beaten this to death. I have nothing further to add. T5TM.
Okay, well, rather than go down the list, just jump in if you have something to say. Go ahead, anybody.
Well, I do. I'm next on the list, KE5ICX.
Of course, who are you again? K5ICX. Go ahead.
All right, now I'm watching episode 2, and, I got to tell you this. It's really cool. Is that episode 2, not the movie, the terrible movie we saw where they edited out everything that was good and just put going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's actually a plot and people in costume and they're being captured and moved from here to there and back and everything. It's not all spaceships buzzing about. The opening sequence you see in episode 2 is a recap, and it's a text recap. And of course, maybe you don't know this or not, but it's got a forced perspective. Forced perspective similar to Star Wars, which means Star Wars, George Lucas stole it from this. It has the whole opening chapter 1 thing, or 2, or whatever the heck it was. That's pretty cool. The other part, I think that's maybe an influence for Star Wars too, the costumes really are not bad in this thing. The bad guys are in black, the good guys are in white, the Jedis are in white, the evil empires, never mind. And then they've got this bullet car thing that goes from Dallas to Houston, from Earth to another part in Earth. That works well. And then Wilma's wonderful. She acts somewhat scared, but then she takes control of everything and makes the things happen. So you have a strong female lead in this thing. And then lastly, I don't know what the character's name is. There's an Asian fellow in this film who acts as a liaison. He was, if I remember this correctly from reading it earlier, he was the guy who was the guy who taught whoever the guy was in Kung Fu, how to do all his Kung Fu. So there you go. I'm having a Roomba moment. Back to net control. KE5ICX.
Well, what's interesting about that Asian fellow, I think the costumes were interesting but inconsistent. I think they just went back in the warehouse and picked out whatever they could find that looked kind of futuristic. Lots of cakes. I'm saving all my cakes so that 500 years from now I'll have a supply of them, and they certainly, cakes are great for dramatic gestures, so, but they're pretty hard to deal with. They're always in the way. Let me just say that. Okay. Anybody else have a comment? like we may have run out of things to say. Okay, Tom, do you have anything quick yet? KE5ICX.
Yes, I do. Are you ready for it?
Bring it on.
I have chosen our first silent movie. We continue to go back to the future, and it will be, what is that movie? Metropolis. You can pick whichever musical accompaniment you want. So when we talk about music, that may be an interesting, bizarro part of the film. Metropolis, I think from 1929. What do you think about that? KE5ICX.
I think that is super. I've never seen it. People always say, oh yeah, you have to see it. So now this will be part of my education being complete. Okay, I think we're going to put this thing to bed. There were 9 of us here discussing tonight. Let's have one more chance for check-ins or comments.
W5EBB.
W5EBB.
Thanks. I had to switch to another radio. I was not getting through on the other handheld. But just to be brief, I think I know what this movie was about and what its purpose was based on the reaction of everybody here who saw it. Wait for it, reset. This was an experiment in programming viewers to see if they could agitate, confuse, and just generally rile up the audience based on the subtle change, not so subtle changes, that they made to the movie over time. And the 50s was about the time when this was kind of, this kind of experimentation was being done. And I think this is basically a clockwork orange, and our eyelids were held open, and it created this response. What do you think? W5EBD.
Well, that's a real interesting idea. I am a little surprised at how negative people were about this. We don't usually see that. Any other comments?
BB.
And 5BB.
First, Metropolis came out in 1927. Just to correct the earlier comment. I think the movie we saw for this week was simply an attempt to make a few bucks by throwing something out there that they didn't have to do anything. They just did a little poor editing, jumbled it all together, made a few bucks, didn't have to create anything new. And because it was one, you didn't have to listen to all, you didn't have to watch all the individual ones. At that point, they would have had to release it again. It would appear pretty lame in 1953 to release each of those 12 episodes. But by cramming it all together and putting the wrapper around the start and the end, they attempted to make it into a new production poorly. Is that BB?
All righty. Okay, we're going to shut this down. It's 23:36. There were 9 of us tonight, so it was a nice discussion, I thought. Thank you all for participating. This is WB5OZL out.
Thank you, Brenda. You did a great job. I'm still watching this Chapter 2. It's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. And and Wilma's doing a great job. She's telling was Buck and Buddy. Nobody can remember poor Buddy, that kid, the one who was flying the dirigible when it went into the mountain or something. Any rate, so let's see, 232 minutes or something. 232 minutes is in this thing. So I don't know. Who knows? Could be interesting. You know what? I think I'm going to watch it. Well, in sections, because there's no way anybody can sit through two. Binge watching Buck Rogers? No. E5ICX.
75. KVICX.
Hey, David, go ahead. Your signal is really light. I got to turn you up full blast. So just shout into your interlocutor. Go ahead.
Actually closely resembles the gift from Return of the Jedi. The shape is very, very similar, and I thought that was another copy from George Lucas. Just a guess. 75.
Well, he stole a lot of stuff from, the serials and that. And he was the first to admit doing that. And watching this thing, I can see a lot of that in the Star Wars stuff going on. The visuals too, I thought, are kind of interesting. While the spaceship stuff is very ridiculous, yeah, it's terrible. I agree. The sets are very Art Deco, and they have kind of this cool look to them. And interestingly, I think Star Wars had a very also simplistic and sinister look to the damn thing. I thought that it really played in well with that. So, yeah, I think I see inspiration for Star Wars from this series. So, who knows? KE5ICX.
Yes, of course, I've watched all of the making of Star Wars, and there are many references to Flash Gordon. And so I guess I kind of got accustomed to expect, relatively bad effects from Flash Gordon. And as an aside, this is my new vanity call sign. I was formerly known as KG5YBO. So I've taken over my late stepfather's call sign, which is W5FC.
All right, well, very good. You may have to do a lot of phonetics on it with the EBB, Echo Bravo Bravo. You may want to go ahead and do that a lot, because it's sometimes hard to pick up. But congratulations, great new call sign. And I'm warming to this thing. I hated the movie last night when I watched it, but I'm actually warming to the serial now. It is working. Now it's moved on to Chapter 3 with the forced perspective again through the whole thing. I like this a lot. I get it. We reach, brother. KE5ICX.
Yeah, and as I said, I didn't really listen to this movie very much, but I did look at the visuals and the patterns, the geometric design, the vanishing points, common in Art Deco. It was visually, I thought, fairly appealing in those respects. And thanks for the tip. Whiskey 5, Echo, Bravo, Bravo, clear.
All right, David, we'll catch you next week. Don't forget, Metropolis. That's what we're watching. So we're going to have to discuss the dialogue and the... the audio. That's next week it'll all be about the audio. It's all about the bass.
Very good. W5EBD.
All right, 7-3. Have a good evening. This is KE5ICX. I'm also clear.